Yo, welcome in. My name is Sweet Phil, and today I'm bringing you the Everyman Wind Druid. Now, this is essentially just like some cheap gear options and showing you kind of how you want to distribute your skill points and your stat points and stuff like that. So we're going to jump right into it here, starting off with the stat points, kind of always where I start off. Just enough strength to wear your gear, pretty standard max Vita build. So you got the 156 at least to carry the spirit, and you just dump everything else into Vitality. It's that simple right there. You see the resistances are a little bit on the low side. It's because it's all cheap gear. Anyone could obtain this gear, especially at this point in ladder. You could probably get most of this gear, if not all of it, just like given to you at some point. So we'll go ahead and take a look. Maybe you got a mule just completely full of gear that you want to just, oh, you know what? I'm thinking about maybe making a druid because I have all this stuff I found along the way already. You know, so let's go ahead and jump into the skill tree. Very, very simple. We'll start off at elemental because this is a wind druid. That's where essentially all your points are going to go. We just got one from Arctic Blast to get down to the other stuff. Cyclone Armor, which is good to use. Twister, Tornado, which is where a ton of your damages come from, and Hurricane, which is also another one that you do use. So these all synergize with each other as well. So you max out all four of those. And if I did not mention too, this character is level 85. Very obtainable level for people to get to as well. So go ahead and look back at the skill tree here for shapeshifting. This one's pretty straightforward. Don't do nothing here, bro. Don't need any of those. We're going to come over to summoning tree. Now, I went straight down the middle here. 1, 1, 1, 1. All the way down to summon grizzly. So I kind of use all of these while I'm playing along. I actually don't use ravens because one point of the raven, it doesn't really do nothing for you. They die off instantly almost. But I end up using these as like, you know, shields out in front to distract from me getting attacked, and any remaining points I dumped into Oak Sage. Now there was a couple different ways you could do this. I guess if you want your bear to be your like main tank, it gets a 15% life increase from summon direwolf points. So you could put points into summon direwolf, which would actually make them survive longer and add damage to them, and then also increase the life to the bear to make it survive longer. But I decided to go with points into Oak Sage because it'll boost up the life of everything. Also, along with boosting your life as well, and boosting the life of the Oak Sage, meaning it will survive longer, and it does get slapped down pretty easily if it gets touched. So having it survive a little bit better, in my opinion, just ended up being the way to go. Now you see up here as well from Direwolf, the regular Spirit Wolf also gets a boost in life as well from the points into Direwolf. So that does boost up the survivability of your summons if you do end up putting those points into Direwolf. But I decided to do, like I said, the Oak Sage to help out your life and your mercenary's life as well. We'll go ahead and take a look at the gear now. And the gear, it's kind of standard caster type of stuff, to be perfectly honest. And it all doesn't, we'll say, mesh perfectly. I'm not nailing an exact breakpoint for FCR because this is kind of almost thrown together gear. These are great options. I'll try to give you some other options as we go along here. With the Spirit Sword, as for other options, you're probably pretty much just going to go with Spirit Sword until you get the Hoto. The other stuff you could use, like Suicide Branch and stuff like that, or Whiz Spike, are good, but this is so easy to get. It's probably easier to get than even those items. Spirit Sword here is going to be pretty obvious. Spirit Monarch, as for other options here, it's just mega budget stuff. Spirit Monarch is what you're going to want to try to get here for early game, or as early as you can get it, and all the way end game. It's the best, you know, you could do. For your amulet, this is an example of one that I found. Anything you get skills, strength, life, resistances, and stuff like that, that's what you're going to look for here. This is a rare amulet that I did find along the way. Threw it on there. Up at here, Jalal's Mane is a great option with all res, life after kill, hit recovery, druid skills. So Jalal's Mane is a great option. It's pretty cheap. You can usually trade for it for next to nothing. Shaco, obviously an amazing choice up there as well. Probably better, but I do like using a class specific item here, one that's not used on literally every character. It's kind of cool to throw that on there. Here we got a Skin of the Viper Magi, Enigma Endgame, obviously great, but a bunch of other different little options you could throw on there. You know, if maybe you're using your stealth still, even if you haven't found this yet, but Skin of the Viper Magi, very, very solid option for casting. Mage Fist or Trang's Gloves, pretty much all you're going to want to use unless you haven't found that much yet. Some rare pair you throw on there. We've got a Ravenfrost for the Cannot Be Frozen. We've got a Caster Ring. Depending on where your breakpoints fall, if you want to hit the breakpoint exactly, you could throw in another Caster Ring. Maybe not worry about Cannot Be Frozen or get it somewhere else, such as your belt. and we'll talk about the bell right now. I just got the string of ears for the damage reduction, magic damage reduced. You could throw on a Trang's belt is another option for cannot be frozen. That might not be a bad option, actually. I would probably maybe almost prefer that, especially depending on your FCR breakpoints. But always getting everything perfectly min and maxed with budget gear, kind of just throwing it together as you play through, or right after you get done with your first playthrough in ladder or single player or something like that. You aren't always going to have exactly the perfect stuff. Trang's Bell has cannot be frozen. It's got life and mana, I believe, on it. So that would be a good option here too. But the damage reduction does help your survivability and that magic damage reduced, even though the life steal doesn't do nothing for you. Over here we got Alder's Boots. It is for a Druid set too, which is kind of cool. But the walk run, the life on it, the fire res, damage taken going to mana is a thing. But mainly it's the fire res and the life on that particular item there. Tons of other options for boots. I wouldn't blame whether you're using hot spurs to get increased max fire res, if you're using treks, if you're using war traps, million different options on boots you could go with right there. Down in the inventory, we got a few skillers. Elemental skillers are not particularly expensive to trade for. You know, just some small, like lower mid runes type of stuff to get elemental skillers. They're not tough to trade for. No one really makes a ton of druids. It's more of a for fun type of build. And I just threw in some magic find charms down here because if you're going to be magic finding, you'll want more magic find. Over on swap here, you're going to want to put a teleport staff of some kind if you do not have an enigma, which you're not going to. So I got a generic teleport staff here. You can buy straight from a few different vendors around the game. Nedge's Puzzler is the optimal one here because you'll get more charges for that particular item there. So Nedge's Puzzler optimal on Switch, or of course a CTA and a Spirit if you could get that. But we're going with the everyman build here, so more cheaper gear. Take a look at our Mercenary. We got a generic Insight here in a non-ethereal great poleaxe. So Insight, that'll help keep your mana up with the Meditation Aura, and obviously it's got a good amount of enhanced damage and stuff like that. Critical Strike down there too. It's not a very good roll, but no big deal. We have a Treachery here. This one's even non-ethereal. It's just a cheap Treachery here. And sorry, this stuff is a tiny bit behind my head. It's not really that big a deal. Most of y'all know what this stuff is already. We'll scoot over like this so you can see a little bit better. But we'll throw it over here and get a better look at exactly what the Insight is. Most of y'all know what an Insight is already, but I'll give you the look at it. Then up here, Tal Rasha's Heralded Crest. You need Life Leech on your Mercenary for survivability. It is very, very helpful, at least. It's not mandatory, but it's essentially mandatory. This does also have life, and that 15 to all resistance is very helpful as well. So now we're going to go ahead and jump out just a few examples of places that I like to test this stuff out at. We'll get our Cyclone Armor going. We got our Oak Sage. We're going to get our Bear. We're going to get 5 of our regular wolves. We're going to get 3 of our dire wolves. And this is our little pack here that's going to go ahead and help us out. Now we're going to go ahead and head right out. We're going to get our Cyclone Armor going. It doesn't last very long, so keep an eye on it. And walk out here and cast our tornadoes at these guys. And this is just players 1. This is the first example. I'm going to do this at players 1. I'm going to do a little bit walk into the Chaos Sanctuary and on players 1, and then I'm going to go ahead and switch it to players 8, so just so you can see the difference of how it works. So that goes ahead and slaps them down real quick. Let's take a look at the Chaos Sanctuary. Alrighty, now we're marching into the Chaos Sanctuary here, and this is just players 1, but it does work pretty good on the players 1 difficulty, but these are the weaker monsters here. It's, you've probably already seen all you need to. It's kind of slapping them down pretty quickly. Yes, it's no hammered in, I get it, but it really does work pretty darn good as long as you keep your Oak Sage up and running, and that keeps everything alive good. It really does a good amount of damage, and you can walk right through here without much problem. You could definitely, obviously, if you got your resistances a little higher, you could go ahead and get your survivability even better, but this works pretty darn good. Let's go ahead and check on the players 8 difficulty, so a max game, and see how well this build does. Alright, we go down here, we see it's over to players 8 difficulty. Let's go ahead and hit the same order. We're going to go ahead and hit Frigid Highlands here first. And of course we want to go ahead and get everything revved up once again. Cast everything out here. We got our bear, we got our wolves, we got our spirit wolves here. We get this going. And even though this is cold damage, these guys are immune to cold. But, you know, it's still get it fired up. So when there's stuff that's not immune to cold, it'll work. This isn't exactly the greatest area. You see those guys went down pretty good. But let's go ahead and test make sure it's the exact same area as before. Up here at Eldritch's guys, and it is going much slower. You do see they have a ton more life, but you can see kind of the survivability. You got the stuff up here that's blocking the shots. You got your cyclone armor that's going ahead and keeping you alive longer as well. So even in full games, you can come up here and you can go ahead and do some other stuff. Let's go ahead in the Chaos Sanctuary. A little bit more difficult, a little bit more variety of monsters. See how it does there. Alrighty, now we're marching into the Chaos Sanctuary, and once again, go ahead and throw your tornadoes out here. And you can see, once again, it's still working. This is Players 8 difficulty, okay? There's a lot of builds in this game that are known as pretty good, but when you get on Players 8 difficulty, it gets a lot tougher. But you can see this is with budget gear, too. This is no Enigma. You got no Hoto. Unfortunately, poison is just wrecking me because I don't have very good poison resistance, but there's a ton of different options. If you throw on Sandstorm Trex, you'd be a-okay because it's got that 40 to 70 poison res on it or whatever. All good options. You see my wolves are getting chopped down, so we'll go ahead and bring up some more of those. Just keep that going. Make sure this hurricane is going here. And you can walk right through into the Chaos Sanctuary, even on Players 8 difficulty here, with a pretty budget setup. And once again, I will repeat because people will comment down below, this build sucks. Hammered in Fist of Heavens is so much better. Well, I get it. I get it. Twisters are, or tornadoes are kind of hard to aim. It's not quite the same damage. But if you're only going to play the same build over and over again, what are you doing, bro? So hopefully you have fun with this particular build. If you do, if there's anything you'd like to do differently, or let me know if you decide to try this out, go down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on the video as a whole and if you're going to play this build. So peace out, fellas, and don't forget, keep slaying.